I will call this meeting to order. Roxanne, if you'll take roll and note, I have Carl Slaw on the phone here. If we'll all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Council had time to review the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please show a voting sign. Carl? Motion passes. Public comments. Are there public comments? Seeing none, we will skip that item and go to the consent agenda. Are there questions about the consent agenda?
Second.
There is a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please show a voting sign. Carl? Motion passes.
Time to look.
Item A, new business, 519.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, staff, Greg was approached a while back for a house at 519 South Ohio. That house is just outside the city limits, has actually property in between that house and the city limits on South Ohio. They have a septic issue out there, and they're within the 400 feet that the county's going to require them to be connected to the sewer. They also don't have the acreage to have a septic system anymore. So they petitioned to the Planning Commission to basically not be annexed and be allowed to attach to our sewer, which as staff we don't necessarily have a concern with the attachment and the annexation. Most of that in our code has to do with subdivisions that are being built, and we felt that it was just proper to go through that channel, even though it wasn't really a subdivision. It's a structure that's existing. So I guess the Planning Commission approved the request with the understanding that the sewer line, the private sewer line, would not be ran in the road right away and be on a private easement. And the reason the city wants that is, number one, we've got utilities in that road right away that we serve those houses with water and gas and electric, as well as the potential other franchisees. And if you have a private sewer line or a private line of any kind, and they're not a member of One Call, what happens if we go out there and dig and we hit it? So that's the stipulation, and staff is fine with moving forward in that same direction as long as it's on private easement off the road right away.
Where are they going to connect at? I know at one time there's talk about trying to get a easement right away across other property. Right. Which, are they going to the north or the west and connecting?
They'll go to the north.
Over to?
What is that, Spruce?
Yes,
Spruce.
So they'll go directly north, Gene, basically parallel Ohio Street and tie in there at Spruce. And it's definitely deep enough. It's not going to be a connection issue for us. And honestly, we serve them all the utilities anyhow, so what's one more that we can collect on? So,
okay, what cost is the city going to have as far as this project?
We won't have a cost in it. There'll be a road repair that they'll be required to repair the road, put it back to the same state it was. It would be no different if somebody had to dig their sewer line up here in town. We would require them to put that back. That is solely on the property owner.
Okay.
And if they don't patch it, we'll go back and patch the street and figure out an estimate or bill them accordingly.
Okay. Go ahead, Carl.
I feel like we should follow our municipal code, so I'm opposed to this sewer connection without voluntary annexation into the city limits. I think we have a code and we should follow it. And this does not apply just only to subdivisions, but to individual property owners on the perimeter of the city.
And I've got a question and a comment that I'd like to follow Carl on. One, do we know why the Planning Commission, what their thinking was on allowing the straying from the policy as written?
Well, and Carl and I differ in opinion on this, because when I read the code, it truly relates more to new additions being built, because it doesn't really talk about a separate parcel. It's kind of a gray area to me in our code.
And then I'll follow up with a comment, and it kind of leans towards what Carl's thinking. We've got how many years before we can negotiate with Gas City again? And what's our real benefit of the property up north that we service that's in the county? My concern is we've got these entities outside of the county. We've got this property outside of the county wanting to come in. How many more are on the outlying area that may want to come in? I don't have a problem that they want to come in. What I'm concerned about is that we as city residents, we have a tax we pay that goes in every year to the general fund. And that general fund helps pay for the riprap at the lagoons, to reline the sewer systems, to update the water plant. And those individuals outside, all they're doing is paying the minimum meter charges. So if they're not willing to come in and help share the burden of where their utilities come from, then if we're going to stray from voluntary annexation, could we assess an additional fee for those outside to help contribute to the infrastructure?
Correct me if I'm wrong, the charges for out of city are higher than in city limits on our utilities already.
Typically, yes. And
Subdivisions.
well, no.
But is it on a
for any tap.
Not just subdivisions,
Right.
for anyone.
Two, I have a question here on the legality, because there's an empty spot here that's not their lot, is that correct?
Right.
That's what I was
I don't
thinking.
know, could they legally self-annex, because they'd no longer be touching, there'd no longer be a contiguous border there, right?
Yeah, we'd have an island annexation.
And I don't know if you can do that. Can you annex?
Yeah, you can have
I
an
think you
island
can do it.
annexation.
Annexation, that's permissible.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Where does the city limits run there?
Right there on Spruce.
Spruce
Yeah.
and then east of Ohio Street?
No. It runs Spruce back to the east over to what would be,
Or
yeah, whatever that
south of
street is.
Spruce Street and east of,
East of Kentucky is out still. The east side of Kentucky, where the houses are at that are connected, some of those houses are outside the city limits from Spruce south.
okay.
I mean, and the other thing, I mean, I guess to answer your question somewhat, Steve, on the cost and the taxes, I guess I look at what they're being assessed in property taxes going more towards police, fire, street and alley stuff. The sewer rates should pay for those those type of things, so the rate that we receive should pay for that maintenance and upkeep. I agree. I'm not sure we'd gain much by the property tax, but yeah, I mean, I get the thought.
And I would almost imagine on a property like this, we probably make more on the out of market utilities. I remember when we were talking about annexing the northern subdivision, that by the time the property tax kicked in versus the utility charges, it wound up being almost the exact same payment for those customers, down to $1. One of them worked out their payments. So I think, kind of washes itself out on that property tax versus that utility charge.
Well, just to say a little bit more along with line with what Councilmember French said, this is a little bit more than just a cost, because every time we depart from our municipal code, we're setting a precedent. And next time a property owner wants to connect to our utilities, they're going to cite this. So I just don't agree with departing from our municipal code. I think we ought to stick with it.
That's one hell of a cost to dig that line.
And
How
that's-
deep are they gonna have to go with that line, Corey?
I don't know, Gene. I mean, you gotta get a 1/4 inch per foot, and they're 300 foot away, and our sewer main is, what'd I say, 7 foot deep? So, I mean, they can get the fall rather easy. I mean, they'll dig it as shallow until they have to drop into main. I mean, that's typical for in town even. So,
And again, what was the reason they allowed it to stray from what was written?
the planning commission,
Yes.
a lot of it is based on me and Greg's recommendation and the fact that there's not a lot to gain but a nuisance and a code violation. And there are some issues with the island. Well, I shouldn't say there's an issue with the island annexation. It's just not clean and cut. And if we can't get consent for the middle property, it just doesn't make sense to me. But I mean,
What is their alternative if we didn't vote this through?
I'm not sure they have an
They don't have one, yeah.
No, because they don't have the land.
Why don't they have the land now to,
Well, it's just a smaller parcel, Ron.
They only have 2 acres.
Yeah.
I think the state requires you to have.
You got to have minimum 3 or 4.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have a set.
And it does fall within the 400 foot of a sewer line, a collection line.
I don't think have a voluntary annexation. It's just a matter of filling out the paperwork. So I still think we ought to push for that.
I think they will do that, Carl. It's not them that I'm worried about. It's the boundary ordinance and the property to the north of it. If you don't get that property to the north, it's just a kind of a mess. Our boundaries are already kind of a mess down there. We ought to square them up completely, to be honest with you.
Well, we are looking to annexing that whole area there to that, from Spruce south to the, I mean, those people we're already servicing those peoples on the east side of Kentucky, right, with utilities?
Yeah, and there are a few of them houses that are on sewer already, those few houses in there.
Maintain the road for them.
Ron, what are your thoughts here as we go around?
well, I'm kind of on, I can see both sides of it. And I understand that they don't really have any other options. But I also understand that we have the municipal code that if we run into something like this again where people are going to want to not be annexed in, I mean, we ran into this with the north section of town where they didn't want to be annexed in. So I'd hate to get into a screaming match in the future with somebody coming in and say, well, you allowed to do it for them. Why aren't you going to do it for us?
Dane, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, I think it's a win-win situation. I mean, you know, I can understand Carl and Ron's point on the municipal code ordinance, but yet, you know, we're here to serve the public and to help the public if we can. And, I mean, if we don't do something, they're going to lose a home. They're going to be maybe be without a home.
Well, they could annex in. I mean, that's the alternative.
Annex in. So I'm concerned about setting a precedent. Our municipal code as well have the same problem over and over again with properties on the perimeter.
How often do we face this problem? I mean, you know, I'm almost 6 years on the council, and this is the first time something like this has come before the council.
Mark, what are your thoughts here?
You know, if we don't annex them, we're just going to open up a can of worms, let, you know, others wanting to do the same.
What's the flip side of people that want to annex into the county?
They like being in the county because it has less of the regulation.
Right, absolutely. So if we do something like this, what do we see of people on the outskirts wanting to say, well, I'd rather be in the county rather than the city?
You can't annex yourself.
So why can they self-annex here?
You can annex yourself into the city, but you can't annex
a
yourself
voluntary.
out of the city.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, we could unincorporate areas, but that would have to come from us, and that's a mess, and I don't even know all of that rigmarole. Nancy, what are you thinking?
Well, I guess my thought is I would really like to understand the code and know where this gray area came from. And if there is this gray area, that's why Planning Commission decided that this was okay without annexing them, then obviously there needs to be some clarity on this code, because if there's gray area there, then that's going to cause issues.
I don't think there's really a gray area. I think it's pretty clear that properties that want to connect to our utilities should be required to annex. You know, if we try to force annexation for properties connected to the city, we found that's very difficult in the past, and this is the ideal time to do it. When they want to connect, they just need to simply fill out the paperwork and voluntarily annex.
The code 15-402, sewers outside sewer district. A, owners of property outside the city limits who desire to connect to the sanitary sewer system of the city will be required to voluntarily annex prior to being allowed to connect to the sanitary sewer system. In this case, J.D. Harris has volunteered to be annexed. He doesn't want to be annexed, but he would volunteer to do that. 15-403, application, any person desiring to make a connection with the sewer and drains of the city and coming within the provisions of this article shall make an application for voluntary annexation in writing to the Code Services Office. The application shall state, it has several things there it's supposed to have on it.
Where's the gray area?
Well,
That just said to me that if they want to connect, then they need to annex.
Right, but if you read section B that I've got on your form, it also starts talking about annexation application to the Planning Commission and the governing body and attains their approval. The plat, once approved, well, we're not going to require one property to plat. This is why I say it starts talking, when we start talking about connection, it's starting to talk about subdivisions and bigger pieces of property than just one resident.
That it's two separate codes, because when statutes and codes are written, you have A, and he as an individual, to me, falls under A, owners of property required. B talks about platting multiple properties. So to me, those are two separate issues. You wouldn't cite both.
I don't want to speak for the Planning Commission, but I believe their thinking is they were okay with not annexing this one property into the city just so they could hook up to sewer. If that was the stickler, then we should annex that whole corner down there and square off the city limits. So.
But I think we're conflating issues here. Let's settle one issue. If the council wants to address the borders and boundaries at a different time, and if the council wants to try to do forcible annex again, joy. I don't think that's the issue here. The issue here is whether or not they're going to allow connection without annexation, and it doesn't feel like they're going to.
Do we have any other, I guess they'd be customers, that have done this, that we've allowed to hook to utilities without annexation?
Yep.
When was
Probably
this?
the most recent one, where Craig's building's at. That's probably the most recent one that I can think of in the time I've been here, Ron.
And when was this code created?
This, as far as I know, this has been in our code for a number of years.
I believe we took the city's earth.
I don't know. And I think there are some cases that have happened over the years, but I think this is something, and Carl, you might be able to correct me here. Is this something that we did back when we changed the code, when we recodified them?
We reviewed this, but I don't know that we made any change to it.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'd have to look back at some of the old code books to see if that section was still in there. I don't think my memory tells me that we didn't do any drastic changes to the code in this section, but, I mean, obviously things are different now than what they were 10 years ago or 5 years ago when the code was different, but.
Well, if the discussion is over, I'd like to make a recommendation.
Let's go for it, Carl.
I recommend that we deny the request from 519 South Ohio to connect to the city's sewer system unless they agree to voluntary annexation.
Is there a second on this?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Basically, it's denying the request unless they voluntarily annex. All those in favor, show voting sign. Carl?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Original code was 1988.
Item B.
Can you follow up with them, Corey and Greg, and see if they will want to voluntarily annex themselves?
Yeah, and I think they will come back with an annexation. This was discussed pretty thoroughly at the Planning Commission meeting as well. And I think they'll come back probably next meeting. Planning Commission discussed this just like you
Once they're
will.
annexed in, though, with that motion, they don't necessarily need to come back here to connect, do they? Not the way that motion was made.
I mean, there may be some stuff that,
No, they won't. What's going to happen is they are immediately going to get code enforcement because that property is in very bad shape.
Yes,
That was another part of the discussion at the Planning Commission level was, do we really want this in the corporate city limits? If you've gone by there, and I went by there, it's in bad shape. I mean, they're going to get
Numerous letters.
they're going to get the consent annexation. We'll get that paperwork. It's a basic ordinance.
Have enough ink, Greg?
This is going to become, they're immediately going to become a code enforcement issue for us. And, it's not an ideal situation. They're still trying to figure out, the owners of the property to the north, to get that easement there on the west side of that property. So there's going to be some hoops they have to jump through. And we discussed at staff level, we discussed it at the Planning Commission level. This is going to become an issue with code enforcement, and this, I guess we talked to the landowner, and there seemed to be some reciprocation on getting it cleaned up. Whether that's actually going to come to fruition, we'll soon find out. But we got the direction from the council. We'll get that paperwork for you. I don't think they're going to have any issue with it, and we'll have it for you at the next meeting.
Item B, roof replacement.
in your packet, Mayor and Council, is a bid from Bourne's Roofing to replace the roof over the Wartzilla building, or Wartzilla generating units out at out at the river. And we've never had any repairs or anything done on this roof, and it was put in, when did we put the Wartzillas in, Roxanne? 2000? Anyway, it's lived its life, and we budgeted $30,000 for this through the budget process last year for this year, and we're just seeking approval to award the bid. We sent it out to a couple different vendors and as well put it on our website, and only received the one bid. So, it's a unique kind of roof. I mean, not a lot. There's roofing companies. There's only so many that do that rubber TP. I think it's TPO roofing. So, yeah, it's kind of unique.
Those are some expensive pieces of equipment that we need to protect. There's some very expensive pieces of equipment that we need to protect.
Is that what's going back on it, TPO?
Yeah, we'll put the same type of roof on.
Hold on, Carl, did you have a question?
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, go for it.
I move that we accept the bid from Bourne's Roofing Incorporated for the Wartzilla roof replacement project in the amount of $27,790 and authorize staff to execute the necessary documents for the project.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor, please show voting sign. Carl?
Aye.
All right, council and administrator reports. Anybody want to go first here? Go ahead, Nancy.
I would like to say happy birthday to John Wells.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
happy birthday.
58, huh?
It's getting close.
That's it. I just want to be the first one to say it.
Steve?
I have nothing. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
The only thing I have is that the bathrooms down here at the park, I've had my kids play a lot of sports down here, and there's always kids that need to go to the bathroom down here. What do we need to do to get the bathrooms open pretty much all the time down here? My understanding is, I mean, is it an issue of only being open when there's scheduled games? Or do we have an issue just leaving them unlocked to stay open, or what?
I'd have to check with Berkeley to be totally honest with you, but we usually typically open all the shelter houses at the same time until the weather gets cold and we need to winterize
Water
them.
gets shut
Because
off.
I know that I checked Tuesday or Wednesday and they're still closed.
So is it these ones or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and if it's something about, if we're worried about pipes freezing, is there something that we can do? You know, we got a lot of teams that practice really early, and we got kids just going over the hills to go to the bathroom, and, I mean, what do we do? I mean, or at least get a porta potty down here for something for them? I mean, because the closest one would be on this far west side, and the kids from the far east side, if they're having practice. I just feel like we could be doing something better for our kids to make it more convenient for them when they have to go to the bathroom. That's all that I have.
If you'll email back what you find out about those and the opening dates, the entire council, I think the entire council probably wants a response on, or
Yeah.
an update on that. Okay.
It's getting mowing season, and remember, do not blow your leaves and grass clippings into the street. That's dangerous for bikers and motorcycles as well.
Against ordinance.
Against ordinance.
Carl?
The only comment I have is happy birthday, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Carl. I've got nothing. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Thanks for not making this a 4-hour meeting. It's everything I always wanted. So,
Happy birthday. We just done that just for your birthday.
Mark?
Nothing.
Admin? Matt?
Again, I'll wish you happy birthday, and then wanted to let you all know about the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation Housing Forum, which is Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the North Community Building. There's an article about it in the paper today. Housing's obviously an issue everywhere. That would be a time for you all to, if you wanted to go to that meeting, it's available 6 p.m. at the North Community Building on Wednesday, the 28th. That's all I have, sir.
Okay.
Hey, that's me. I'll say.
Motion's made, seconded. All those in favor?
I'll be there Wednesday night.
Thank you for calling in.